Welcome into episode 180. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. We have a Twitter now.
We do.
We have a Twitter, so follow at Pegasus Podcast. A lot of you have so far, and it's been very nice to see that number continue to climb. I get a notification every time we get a follower. I need to fix the notification settings on my phone. But it's been nice. So yeah, we're on Twitter now. We'll have all of our usual, we'll tweet the podcast from there. We'll have podcast things and random musings and angry tweets, I'm sure.
I've already sent an angry tweet, and we've had the account for like 6 hours, which, by the way, I do just have to give a quick shout out. We started the account at the time of recording literally 6 hours ago, and we're already at 101 followers. And that might not sound 100. Like we broke 100. That might not sound like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but getting 100 in a few hours is like, thank you guys so much. Like, I genuinely, that was very touching, because part of the reason we've held off on doing this for a while is because I was like, I don't want to have to manage another Twitter account that has 9 followers. So that's been very cool, and we appreciate it a ton. Bailey and I both have access, and already you can just, by scrolling through three tweets, it's very obvious who's sent which one, so that should be fun as we continue to use this account, but we'll have some fun there.
Yeah, and also what was also touching is the few people who have tweeted us. This happened a little bit last year, that were their like top podcasts or in their top podcasts for Spotify Wrapped. That's still a weird thing. I forgot. I should probably pull it up and see who it was. I think his name was Cameron. And he said it was the number that he posted was like he listened to us for 27,000 hours. It was 27,000 hours? Minutes.
Not hours, buddy. 27,000 hours is like years.
2,733 minutes. And that's in the top 11%. And I was like, that's alarming. But also, like, if you're in the top 1% or top 5%, like, I want to know how many minutes you've listened to us.
You know what's funny, and I was thinking about this, is that I'm probably in the top 1% because I spot check listen every week, which I hate doing, but after we posted, I listened to it all the way through to make sure that everything sounds okay and there weren't any issues or anything. And that,
I think I said
I'm probably in the top 1%.
I think I said it before, like, I just don't.
I know, you just rely on me.
Do it. After like a big win, I would say I listen. Probably. Like, I listen to post game pod, or like if I missed one, like on Saturday when you and Wild Bill, Brian Peterson did the post-game podcast, I listened to that, and that was really well done. So thanks for filling in, Wild Bill.
I was kind of counting on you not listening for that one, because I had 2 different points said that Brian was an upgrade over you, and then I also declared that you'd agreed to go to Shreveport. And then, of course, immediately afterwards, you texted me and were like, I did not agree. Actually, you texted me about I think you were more mad about the upgrade comment than the...
Well, no, I don't think I even texted you about the Shreveport thing. I think I texted, it was really at the top of the podcast. If I didn't have to listen for more than 5 minutes. It was in the intro. You were like, maybe an upgrade. And I was like, I will not stand for this. It was nasty. It was very nasty of you.
We did appreciate Brian filling in very much, though.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad to have you back, Bailey. The uniform talk will probably be worse, but it's okay.
Yeah, I guess. Let's jump to the 5-star review question before we get into, I guess, a lot of things to talk about. Considering there's not a game this week. A lot
this
to talk
has
about,
the potential to be a very long podcast, which is worrying, but we'll do the best we can to keep this around an hour range.
Let's try to not. So the 5-star review question comes from Cam. It says, is it possible that after a few years removed from this era of UCF football, do we look at RJ Harvey as a top 10 player in program history? So that was an interesting question. Very timely question.
Who's your top 10 right now? That's like a lot to put on the spot.
I could
Don't give me like a really regimented list, but just like names. Like, who do you think's in there? Like Mackenzie Milton, Dante Culpepper, Blake Bortles, Kevin Smith, Shaquem, probably.
Shaquem, I think. I'm struggling off the top of my head.
Matt Prater?
Maybe. I run into the thing, because it was before my time, that I'll run into the thing where it's like a player went to the NFL and was like good in the NFL, and I'm like not sure whether, like, Asante Samuel. I don't remember.
That's one of the ones that kind of falls in that category, where he's probably more well known because of how well he did in the NFL than how good he actually. I mean, he was really good here, but you know what I mean.
Joe Burnett, I think, was one. That was another one. I don't know who makes the rounds out the top 10. This isn't really a question for me.
But it's also, this was like when we drafted our all-time teams. Is part of it too. Is how do you weigh, like, obviously UCF's players were worse when they were a D3 or D2 school years ago, but then how do you weigh those contributions? Because they still contributed heavily to the program, even if they obviously aren't a player who would probably, like, make the roster today, but they were obviously very important to UCF. So it's like stuff like that. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah.
So the answer is sure, because the list is entirely made up. So why not? If you want RJ on your list, throw it on there. I think that my genuine answer is that I'm not sure right now if he would, but if he came back for next year, I think you can check it off as an absolute certainty. He'll be remembered in the same breath as Mackenzie Milton and those type of players. I really do think that if he comes back.
kind of how I approach this question. So I think like it's right now, I would say it's almost borderline. I think like he has established himself, because if you really think about it, like it's been a season and a half of really good production.
Yep.
And so I don't know if you put that in the top 10, but at the level that he's done it, I don't know, maybe there's some of it's recency bias, some of it's like, yeah, in a few years when we look back and say, yeah, he was really good for that season and a half, but he wasn't a legend. I don't know how we would look at it, but
it could reasonably, he's at 1,296 yards. If he plays in the bowl, he could probably, we could be talking about 1,400 yards with him. I do think that it could reasonably be a very long time before another UCF running back is putting up numbers like that as efficiently as he did, which is a big part of it. 6.1 yards per carry right now.
And I think that's the thing is like you said, if he comes back for another year, which I know like it's right now completely up in the air.
We just have no idea.
If he does, and I think, and he has similar production, then yeah, absolutely. He'll cement himself. He'll probably climb some of the record books. I don't really know where he's at all time in terms of his career rushing yards, but he'll I think one more year, and yeah, I think there's definitely that potential.
Should I save what I'm very angry about for the news regarding RJ Harvey, or should we just talk about it?
Let's just talk about it now.
Okay.
I'll talk about the rest later.
So the Big 12, all Big 12 teams were announced today. They do a first team and a second team, which, by the way, the first team and second team, they're each 2 running backs who were selected for each team. So 4 running backs total. Also fullbacks for some reason, because apparently it's 1993. So that's cool. And RJ Harvey was an honorable freaking mention for the all Big 12 teams. I thought he was a shoo-in for first team. And maybe that's bias. I don't even think that's bias. I assumed he was. The Big 12 has very good running backs.
I didn't think he'd be first team.
211 carries for 1,296 yards, 16 touchdowns. He buried Oklahoma State, who's going to be playing for the Big 12 title game this weekend. He rushed for over 100 yards in 6 of UCF's last 7 games. And none of those were games where they were just handing him the ball like 35 times. He's just really freaking good.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have we talked about this season there? This is what happens when I don't even know, is that you don't watch the games or what? I don't understand how, because it's not just that there are running backs who put up really good numbers because they have really strong O-lines. And UCF does have a really good O-line this year. All 90 variations we saw of it were pretty decent. But how many times in a typical game is there a play where RJ Harvey runs into a wall, goes, oh, the play's not there. That's okay. I'll pick up 8 yards anyway. I'll bounce outside. I'll wait for something to open up. Like he's incredible. And for him to not be on either the first team or second team I'm not just being angry. Why didn't you put my player on the team? Whatever. Actually ridiculous. Like the real you don't know ball moment for the voters, who I think are the coaches or maybe media.
I think it was a coach. I think it was coaches.
Whoever they are, they're worried. So
I was worried he wouldn't make it. And this was back when I thought there was one running back on both first and second team, because I thought they'd give Ollie Gordon first team, and if there was one running back, I thought they'd do potentially do Taj Brooks second team, and that's how he'd get. But for there to be 4 running backs between the 2 teams and him not be one of them, like that's what I'm more mad about, about him being snubbed in favor of. I mean, Devin Neal had a really good year, but Jonathan Brooks is the one where like he had a good year, but he didn't do anything. Like he's Texas's running back. Is that it? Like.
Also, at what point do you take into account the other stuff RJ does? 17 catches for 231 yards and a touchdown as well. Is it just it's the running back positions? That doesn't matter. He's not the 5th best running back in the Big 12. I don't think anyone with a brain thinks that. And by the way, if it is the coaches that it's not like Mike Gundy sitting down with a ballot. It means it's the GAs or whoever who do that stuff. And just classic, did not watch, didn't care. And that sucks. That hurt him, because this season should be remembered in some way, and getting stuck with an honorable mention, which by the way, the Big 12 gives like 200 players honorable mentions. Like half of UCF's roster got honorable mentions. I have the list
to go through in the news, and that'll be fun.
Including Colton Boomer, who hasn't worked for 2 games now. Like I just anyone gets it. It's just like giving out candy.
And that's the thing. Like I said, like I wasn't really thinking he was going to be put in over Ollie Gordon, just because if you look at Ollie Gordon's numbers, it's he does it on he has way more carries, so it's different how they're used too. But with the numbers, if you're just looking at stats, his numbers are going to pop out more. He had 20 rushing touchdowns.
I'm not advocating for over Ollie Gordon for the record,
right, and then so that's why I'm saying it's what really comes to play for me is I figured he would be, especially with 2 running backs on both teams. He should have been second team at least, or maybe the second running back. But I kind of get the argument for Taj Brooks too, just because of all the tackle breaking numbers that he had and yards after contact, all that stuff. So it's really I don't have a problem. Like if he would have gotten snubbed because it was Gordon on team 1 and then Brooks on team 2, then I would have been like, all right, that's kind of annoying, but I kind of get it.
Yep.
But with 34 spots, to call him the 5th best running back is insane.
It was Jonathan Brooks where I started seeing red, where I was just like, what are we doing here? So basically, I'm in the boat of I think that Yormark should be fired probably for this.
And that's the thing is, if it's the coaches, then it kind of explains it. And I think I had just the the easy take to go is like, okay, well, it's because we're new. No one wanted to.
Is it coaches or is it media?
I thought I saw someone say something about coaches. Or I don't remember who.
Yeah, but
no, I don't know. I think because it was like, oh, Texas' running back gets in, UCF doesn't. It almost felt like,
if you're listening,
I know that's the easy, lazy take, but
also if you're listening, you'll know that we're having some slight technical issues, so that's fun because Bailey's now paused twice, so but he wasn't just collecting his thoughts. But I'm gonna double check, and I'm just gonna like blatantly speculate on no, it's media because I'm looking at people who were posting their ballots. So yeah, now I'm really mad because everything is the media's fault. That's a joke. I hate when people do that, but seriously, that's just a don't know ball moment. If you ignored RJ Harvey on your ballot, it's crazy, crazy,
bad people. Not bad people.
Okay, okay, all right, let's dial it back.
Bad people. I'll stick to it. Let's get on to our first topic, which is something that feels like it was forever ago, but I guess it was really only last week after we recorded the podcast. Yep. It feels like a lot's happened since then. This was the whole back and forth about the Kingdom, the NIL collective associated with UCF, and I don't know. I have some thoughts on it, but like I feel like you have more thoughts on it, or you
I do.
You were the one who were like, we need to talk about this on the pod, and I was like, all right, I can say things, but let's let you kind of lay it out and explain what happened because it was just a mess.
This is one of those things that I just like me having opinions on this, crazy, I know, but this is one thing that I really wanted to touch on because it was probably, for all of the very, very dumb Twitter conversations that have happened in the UCF sphere this season, and there's been doozies, I think this one was the most like, I don't know if the word is serious, but definitely one of the longest running. I'm still seeing bits of it here and there on social media. And this is one of those things where if you're not big on Twitter or wherever, because this even got into like One Heartbeat and Facebook and everything, you might have missed this. But let's just go back to the beginning of the Kingdom discussion. And I want to read what was said that started all this, and then we can talk about it. So this all started because, is UCF in the CFP yet? Which is a Twitter account name. It's a mouthful, but it's a good name. The answer is no. They tweeted like, basically, 9 days ago now, they tweeted, until there is accountability and transparency in NIL collectives, it's going to be hard for people to give. People want to know who is getting what and what the admin overhead looks like. Until groups are comfortable sharing that info, wallets are going to be slow to open. Now, before I say anything else, I want to point out that this was not a giant account that tweeted this. It had like 10 likes when this all started. Not a big tweet. People tweet stuff. Tweet was out there. So SJ Tui, who is
Hold on 1 second. We'll cut in 1 second.
Ahead.
In that tweet, didn't mention UCF. It was a UCF account, didn't mention UCF in the tweet. It was just, I think, it was a general NIL tweet.
Very good point.
General NIL.
So I'm going to read a bit here because I just want to, SJ Tui posted a thread, and before we talk about it, I just want to say it all. So SJ Tui, the executive director of the Kingdom, quote tweeted that with this. So I'm going to read it. I hope this isn't an actual reason for a UCF fan is not involved with the Kingdom. I'm glad to meet for coffee/call with anyone with this as a barrier of entry. It's so disrespectful to those involved to share this with no rationale. We have a staff of two is in caps. We have board members with full-time jobs that spend hours in caps weekly helping. We skimp on so many softwares and platforms other collectives use to maximize money to athletes. We take 0% of over 20 corporate deals that have gone through the collective. Heck, everyone associated with our day-to-day, our 2 employees and management board, are members and give back to the collective we work for. Personally, I invest or do biz with groups to get them to support NIL. Of legit P5 collectives, I bet we are top 5 lowest overhead in the country. If this is an actual issue with any UCF fan, please email because that will be an easy discussion and we would love to have you involved. Coffee or golf or Diet Coke or whatever you want is on me personally and not the Kingdom, laughing emoji. That will be easy money for student athletes. So wherever you stand on this, let me just say to start that the Kingdom has 2 employees. The third needs to be a PR person because why would you engage on this to begin with, especially the way he did? And that's going to become a theme throughout the next few days of this fight, was that at any point, if SJ or the Kingdom had probably just stopped talking, it would have gone away, but they just kept talking and making it a thing. So that all aside, that interaction exploded on UCF Twitter, and it became this very dug-in thing where there were a lot of sides. There were the people who were very pro-Kingdom and saying, well, you suck if you don't donate and all fans should be donating. There were people who were pro-Kingdom but were more like, hey, we need the Kingdom. There were people who were like, I don't feel comfortable donating to a body I don't understand much about. And there were people who were like, screw the Kingdom, this is all rigged and we hate it and we're not going to be in favor of this. So it's been a lot since all of this has happened in the last few days.
Yeah, it has. And I think I don't know if this is going to surprise anyone that listens to this podcast. I feel like I have a nuanced take about it. It's just like, I think that was a very defensive tweet that wasn't even necessary. I think there were some good points made, and I understand kind of part of the intent where it's like, yeah, we want to get you involved, and I'm happy to like talk to you about it. What kind of got me was like this is very disrespectful. I was like, all right, come on.
Yep.
I was like, now you're turning this into a combative thing that's going to be a giant mess. And I think now that like I'm looking at it in hindsight, it's kind of obvious there was no PR person involved with this, because look at the Kingdom's Twitter account. We've always like laughed at it for much of the season because we're like, oh, I love whoever runs the Kingdom account. It's clearly just a person who's just like, I'll just run the Twitter. Like it's not something like a professional PR. Like it's not a professional thing. So yeah, I guess that's not surprising in hindsight, but it turned into this explosive thing. It's like, my whole thing is, yeah, I understand if you're hesitant about it. I understand if you have concerns. I also will acknowledge that it's necessary to college athletics these days. And yeah, UCF does need the Kingdom, or UCF needs an NIL collective, and that is the Kingdom. So it's both of it. And I think there were some things out there that were bad optics for the Kingdom, but might not have even been like anything. There might not have been anything there. It just didn't look good. And that's where some people were, it was easy shots to take. And if you're something that people don't understand already, or are kind of like a little bit divisive on already, you've opened yourself up to a lot of it. So I don't know. It became a big thing. And it was just at some point I was like, all right, can everybody just shut up? Like, I'm just annoyed.
So speaking of bad optics, let's dive in a little deeper. So, and this is where because I agree with basically everything you just said. The reality, regardless of whatever someone wants to say on Twitter at the end of the day, is that UCF needs the Kingdom. UCF cannot function without the Kingdom. That is the only way to build a competitive roster in this day and age, is to have NIL money and raise that money and spend it on players, both in the portal, in high school, and to retain your players. Retaining players is the big thing these days. That being said, if someone doesn't feel comfortable donating, or because of things like transparency or whatever, that's fine. I really don't like this sort of mindset some people are in now, that it's the fans' responsibility for the team to be good, that it's on individual fans to donate money to make their team good. That's not the way it should work. And to be honest with you, I think this whole conversation was pointless, because no collective is building its money off of $25 donations from random Twitter fans. It's the boosters getting involved, and that's where that money comes from. So all that is important. But you talked about optics. Oh, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that's the thing I have no time for, is for you to try to guilt somebody, not you, but for anyone to try to guilt other fans and to be like, okay, well, you need to be donating, or you're a bad fan, or like, if UCF's going to be good, like, you need to donate. Like, some people just can't. Like, some people can't. And whether whether the body that's collecting this money or not, like, is well established or is not even new, whatever. If some people can't donate, like, that's just
and
not
even
a
if
financial
you can,
reality.
And you don't want to, that's fine. I've said on the podcast before, I donate to the Kingdom. I've even said when I did it, that was right after they got Jalen Hayward. I'm like, cool, I'll give him $25 a month.
I bought a rain jacket. That's all I've done. I think I might have donated like one other or two other times. I don't know. But it just, to me, is like, that's where, one, like, enough. Like, come on, you're just being awful. And two, it's kind of along the same lines. You know how you like push people further away from wanting to get involved with this, is doing what you're doing right now. Is being very aggressive and just kind of taking shots at people and doing the whole subtweeting thing of like, oh, this or this. Like, you're not attracting anybody to the Kingdom. You're just making yourself look like an asshole.
So that was where it got very nasty, and we're not on here to like call out people or whatever or anything like that, but some UCF fans who are larger donors to the Kingdom got very nasty on social media with fans who either don't like the Kingdom, don't want to donate to it, can't donate to it, whatever, or
we're just having fun with it.
Or we're just having fun with it is a good one. But a lot of them got very dismissive, got very rude and mean and very down talking. And that was when we got to the private jet. And people started reposting photos of a group of boosters with the Kingdom had taken a private jet to the Texas Tech game and had previously gone to an Ole Miss thing. Let me say right now, as far as I understand, the private jet doesn't have anything to do with the Kingdom. It's not like Kingdom money is being used for the private jet, whatever. That's not a thing at all. But it's one of those things that's an optic. And this was when things really get off the rails. And again, why the Kingdom needs a PR person. Because if you're SJ2E or you're the Kingdom, what you should be doing right now is stop talking. Just let it burn itself out. SJ went on Sons of UCF live while this was all going on, which, by the way, Sons of UCF live, go check this one out because it's a doozy. I could not believe some of the things that were said in this interview. It was again very much like the tweet. It wasn't really a lot of things could have been de-escalated if you get on, you explain, hey, Jet has nothing to do with this. We understand how people could make that leap, but nothing to do with anything. We're sorry about this. Kingdom's great. Hype up the Kingdom. It was about how people just don't understand and why is this so hard? And at one point, I think it was Adam on Sons of UCF even just straight up asked, but can you understand how people can make the leap or make a connection with the private jet or something along those lines? I don't remember exactly the words. And SJ's reply was basically, no, I don't get it. And that just made it even worse. So this has been like PR 101 is basically don't do what the Kingdom's done in the last week. It's been insane. But I can't believe how much of a thing this became over something that honestly doesn't matter. Like the Kingdom is here to stay. It has to be here to stay. That's the only way that UCF can keep its roster together. But at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to the richer chunk of the fan base and the people who are very involved to front that money. It's dumb that that's how college football works, but it is.
Yeah.
And the notion that a fan is lesser because they don't donate to the Kingdom or don't want to donate to the Kingdom is just, I can't believe that was a real thing getting pushed by some people on Twitter.
It was the like, if the team is bad and you're not donating, I don't want to hear you complaining about it.
Insane.
Like, are you kidding me?
Just insane, man.
Like, it's
and crazy. It's a dumb system. It's crazy that in college football, that UCF can't pay players. They have to go get their fans to pay the players for it. Like, that's actually what the rules are. And that'll be changing soon. There's a whole court case moving through Washington right now. This whole NIL thing is about to morph into a whole new thing. But had to touch on that, obviously, since it was this big blow up. But bottom line is, guys, just do whatever you want. And don't be a jerk. Don't tell people they're lesser fans because they're not spending money. It's crazy.
Be nice to people. It's not hard.
Nice. Yeah, I'm saying that. I'm like, guys, be nice to people.
Yeah. Unless you're Cincinnati fans. All right, we'll get on to other stuff that's going on right now because the regular season's over. We're waiting for all the bowl stuff. We'll get to the bowl projections later, and we'll have by the next time we talk to you guys, we'll actually have a finalized bowl game that UCF will be playing in. Some of UCF's players will be playing in, I'm sure. But before all that, we will jump into some of the transfer portal stuff because the transfer portal opens officially. What is it? Monday?
I believe it's Monday, December 4th. Yep.
Players are obviously announcing their intention to transfer into the transfer portal. And when I say players, I mean players in other programs because no one from UCF as of right now has announced that they're entering the portal.
Which is weird because it's not like it's been a trickle. Like Cincinnati's up to 8 in the portal. And let me say, this isn't a situation where no one's leaving UCF. I think there's some very obvious ones we expect to be in there. It's just kind of weird that it hasn't happened yet. And it's other teams that are going to bowls too. It's not like it's just teams whose seasons are over. I don't really understand it. It's very odd.
Kansas State starting quarterback.
Like I don't know if there are players who are planning to enter who just haven't been reported yet. Michigan State lost all 3 of their quarterbacks. Crazy. Yeah, Kansas State's lost a couple. Duke just lost Riley Leonard to Notre Dame, which, by the way, like I know the tampering thing just happens, guys, and everyone does it, so it's not something that like riles me up. But it is funny that Riley Leonard officially enters the portal, and within 5 seconds, it's announced that he's headed to Notre Dame. So that was kind of funny. But
it's just like I don't understand how any of this works. Well, I don't know how some of it works, but if the portal isn't open, how does he already have a destination? Like,
so The Athletic did a story on this like a year ago, and they said that a lot of how it works, this is an example, obviously, is it'll be something like, let's use Riley Leonard as an example. This is entirely hypothetical. I'm not accusing anyone of tampering. It's just like as an example. Notre Dame decides they need a quarterback. They know they like Riley Leonard. They have an assistant coach who maybe talks with Riley Leonard's high school coach or maybe his trainer, and they communicate that way. So there's never any official contact. There's no Riley Leonard ever spoke to Notre Dame. It's just 2 or 3 degrees of separation. Terms are agreed upon. It's kind of like the NBA when they have a free agency and it's like free agency opens at midnight at 12:02. A player's agreed to a 4-year, $35 million extension.
The NFL, the NFL now has a thing they call the legal tampering period, which
is
an
that
oxymoron.
Seriously what it's called?
The legal tampering period. It opens at a certain point where teams can start negotiating, but I don't know why you just don't call it the negotiating period.
The legal tampering period. Yeah. It's not tampering if it's whatever. But anyway, great news. No UCF players have entered the portal yet. That means that we're going to post this tonight on Wednesday, and by Thursday morning, it'll be like, I don't even know who. Someone we didn't expect is off to another school.
The legal tampering period. Yeah, it is. It's a thing. But yeah, we're just going to talk UCF's portal needs as of right now, and we'll get into some that could become needs if certain dominoes fall. And it's just a lot of this is speculation and kind of just, I guess, educated guesses because we know how this stuff kind of works by now.
Yep.
And of course, we'll have to start with the quarterback's position because I would say biggest need because it's the quarterback position, but also because John Rice Plumlee will be gone, and that will leave Timmy McClain, Xavier Williams, and Dylan Risk as the 3 scholarship quarterbacks, I believe.
Riley Trujillo.
Other quarterbacks. Riley Trujillo's coming in too. But they're going to go out and get a quarterback. And right now, a bunch of quarterbacks are entering the portal. There's a lot of starting quarterbacks are entering the portal. The one that's being rumored, I don't know if it's even rumored heavily. I'll just say one that's being rumored that UCF is interested in is Tyler Shough. Is that how you say his last name? I probably should look that up. The Texas Tech
what's funny is I didn't look it up, and I was just kind of gambling on knowing. I think it's like Shough or something.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad.
You know what? We don't know, and we have a long history of mispronouncing UCF quarterbacks' names. We called Dylan Rizk. We called Castellanos. So you know what? For the rest of this conversation, he's going to be Tyler. So we're going to talk about Tyler, the quarter. Tyler from Texas Tech.
That's going to get really weird because my brother's name is Tyler. So
so Tyler, Bailey's brother, is considering transferring. So so this was weird because it was some random account that seemed kind of spammy announced that he was coming to UCF. And then Brandon Helwig and Steven Leonard both pushed back on that. But it does sound like there is legitimate smoke here, that this is something that's actually on the table, could be happening, might be the name to run with for the time being, unless things change. I don't even sort of know how to feel about this one. He's had a long journey and he's gotten hurt a lot. He was Oregon's starting quarterback at one point. Then he came to Texas Tech. Texas Tech was very high on him. He got hurt early in the season, and then his backup ended up taking over, and that was that. Given what just happened with JRP, I have a lot of doubt about going with a quarterback who's had like 3 major injuries, but he's experienced, and they have no experience on this roster right now except for Timmy.
The way that it almost feels as if this ends up being their guy, which I don't know. The portal was not even officially opened yet, and there's still a lot to be done. If this is their guy, it feels more like he's not guaranteed to be the starter, but he's a guy with experience, and that's good to have in a room that has Timmy, who has experience, but you're not really sure. I don't know if you really call him volatile, but he made some mistakes this year when he played. He also flashed a lot, so he looked like he could be good. I think that's kind of a move that you make if Timmy is your guy until he isn't, and you need somebody that you can fall back on. And
I will say it sure feels like at this stage in time, it really does not feel like Timmy's the staff's pick here. I don't. Yeah.
No, it just hasn't felt that. It hasn't felt that way for, I guess, over a year now.
Pretty much ever since he's been here.
So Tyler, our friend from Texas Tech, or potentially our friend, he tweeted in 2017 that it's pronounced Shough.
Shough. I was close. Corn. I said Shough. Yeah, so it's Tyler Shough. Yeah. Okay, we'll go back to calling him Shough.
Shough. Okay, it's not what I would have guessed. That's interesting. People are like, why are they having such a hard time with this? It's because his name is spelled Shough.
It looks like Shough is how I would guess.
Yeah, Shough, or I thought it was like Shaw, like a weird way to spell Shaw. But
we have to have what the Shough shirts made if he comes to UCF, right? Like that has to be a thing.
He comes to UCF. He's the backup quarterback. I don't know. So he's a name that has been out there. I don't know.
Definitely the most out there of any name tied to UCF at this point.
Yeah, has there been any others really? I know there's people that the fans have speculated about, but
Malachi Singleton's mom has really tied him to UCF. But I gotta say, KJ Jefferson, our Arkansas starting quarterback, entered the portal today. So
and he fits Gus's system.
He sure does, but that makes me feel like Malachi Singleton might not now if the path to starting in the SEC just got a whole lot easier than it was before. So I don't know, but I do want to head off one thing right away because we've seen some big names enter the portal. I think the biggest right now are Riley Leonard, like we just said, and Grayson McCall would be the other one. Transfer portal quarterbacks who are proven cost a whole lot of money, and anyone whose name that you know very well, you can probably just cross off the list for someone UCF would be able to get. They're going to have to get someone who's unproven, or at least not proven at a high level, like a Tyler Shough.
I think we learned our lesson on the Bo Nix hype last year.
Yeah,
because we were like, could Bo Nix end up at UCF with Gus Malzahn, and then he ended up at Oregon. Well, it was 2 years ago now, wasn't it? He ended up there at Oregon and is now a Heisman contender. So that would have been fun, wouldn't it? So yeah, I don't know. There's really nothing like quarterback wise. I don't really know what they go for. I don't know if they go for a guy that has a few years, if they go for a proven guy that maybe only has a year left. What a lot of it comes down to, I think, is what they can afford, or just anybody who they can realistically get. Because like you said, the big names are not going to be affordable in terms of money, and it might not even have any interest in UCF anyway, because they're going to have so many offers. So I don't know. I don't know what they even really look for at this point, and I don't know whose style of quarterback they're going to look for. Is it going to be Gus? Is it going to be Hinshaw? Is somebody that can throw the ball deep with vertical passing, which we did see a lot of this year? You look at some of the wide receiver stats.
Well, I think we're learning from the Tyler Shough interest, because he is not a Gus-style quarterback by any means. And we know that Hinshaw prefers more quarterbacks with a strong arm and can do something with their legs, but that's not their primary game. And I think that It seems like the staff is moving more in that direction. Dylan Risk is more of that mold. I think Riley Trujillo is mobile, but is still kind of more in that mold. So it feels like they're moving more that way, which is good because I don't know why Gus is convinced that only non-quarterbacks can be quarterbacks. I'm glad they're moving away from that. But what we can learn from Tyler Shough is they want experience. There are a lot of young, unproven guys they can go grab right now. And I'm okay with that. My dream scenario, and this is like total just made up in my head and not a real thing. I'm not even sure how possible it is with scholarships and all that, since it would be a lot of quarterbacks. But if you can get Shough and you can get Singleton, and you come in with the understanding of you hope Singleton's as good as you were hoping he was when he was in high school, but if he's not and Risk isn't panning out, and obviously you don't like McLean for some reason, then you have Shough who will be fine and won't go out there and tank the team.
Yeah. Well, so you brought that up to me yesterday. And I was like, I was curious, is it possible to get 2 transfer portal quarterbacks? Like, I just don't know if 2 quarterbacks are going to be like, willingly be like, yeah, I'm going to go into a competition. And if, say that does happen, you're going to see some movement. Like, I don't know, Timmy could leave.
You'd see guys leave.
Guess
Trujillo might decommit. Risk might be out.
It wouldn't be a super crowded room because there would be some guys who either decide, all right, I don't want to be part of this, or I'm going to go somewhere I have a chance to play, or there's be players who are told to leave. It's like you might want to get.
Which again, annual reminder before UCF players start entering the portals, and some of you did it last year. When a UCF player announces that they have entered the portal, do not go be mean to them because there is a very decent chance the staff told them to leave. That happens every year. It happened last year. Yeah. You all were very mean to one player in particular who was told to leave. Don't do that. Just wish him well and move on. Yeah. I don't know how to feel though about Shough. I'm just kind of. I think for him, UCF is ideal for him, obviously, because this is a guy who I don't think he's going to command any serious NIL or anything like that, given his background. I think that if he wants to be guaranteed as a starter, he's going to have to go down to the G5, and he clearly doesn't want to do that. It pretty much just comes down to him, I think, of whether you roll the dice that you can win a job in the Power 5 or whether you just take the G5 job. Probably wants to stay in the Power 5, so sees UCF as a room where he can do that.
It's one of those things where it's like I look at it and I'm like, I understand why he would be interested. I kind of get, along the lines of why the coaches would be interested. I just don't really I don't see myself getting super excited about him.
There's nothing to be but it's fine to have that. I seriously, you don't want to be the school that has no proven quarterbacks in the room and you just can't put anything out there. I mean, he would provide stability, which they need. I'll tell you right now, and this is one of those takes that I'm just going to throw out there, and then someone will listen to this a year from now and be like, God, these guys are idiots. I wouldn't be surprised if the first game of 2023 against New Hampshire rolls around and UCF starting quarterback is Dylan Risk. I'm just throwing that out there. The staff loved his progress as a true freshman. They thought he was ahead from what a lot of true freshmen are. Definitely not ready, but showing the mold of someone who could be pretty solid. And maybe it's a situation where you bring in Shough and there's no promise of a job and you use him to push the other guys and you get around to the season. Maybe Risk is your best option. Maybe you're willing, if you're going all in on the youth movement, you're willing to roll with him. Maybe it's a situation where Shough wins the job out of fall camp, but as the season goes on, Risk takes it. Who knows? Just something to think about.
A Brandon Wimbush happening.
That was a different situation, but that was a lot of but not really. But yeah.
I don't know, because he would be a redshirt freshman and have presumably 4 years. So, I mean, there would be a reason to be invested in that.
Then he'd have one really good year, and then he would be Florida's starting quarterback in 2025. So,
yeah.
Florida's quarterback who just started against Florida State is also in the portal. So,
yes.
Maybe UCF can
I don't know. There's I don't know who isn't in the portal.
Will lot Rogers, of quarterbacks.
Mississippi State's quarterback is in the portal. Then they fire their coach, which makes sense. And then Will Howard, obviously, I think kind of just saw the writing on the wall. I think he's a grad transfer. Max Johnson, who's now at UNC from Texas A&M, from LSU.
There are some, which I don't know if any of it's confirmed. It's just like message board crap, but Dylan Gabriel might be moving again now that Levy's gone, which I guess makes sense because that's why he went to Oklahoma in the first place. They also have Jackson Arnold, who I think they're kind of ready for. So
I jokingly said to you, sometimes you have to go back to move forward. So welcome home, Dylan Gabriel.
Would you do it if he was like, I want to come back to UCF?
Yeah,
I think I would too. I don't know where UCF's the Kingdom is going to really need to put out the Twitter fires now to settle that one. But yeah,
as much as we've heard about the kind of teammate he was or whatever, it's just he's a really good quarterback.
It's really great.
Yeah, he's really good.
Plus, I think the staff
looked good under Gus the first few games before he got hurt, and then with the vertical pass, he has one of the best deep balls in college football. But I mean, so it's not going to happen. I mean, he's not.
This is
I'm
such
100%.
To be clear, this isn't any kind of. This is
no.
a joke conversation. He would never come back to UCF. Obviously,
it's a fun conversation, but no, he would not.
But anyway.
But yeah, basically what you just asked me was, would you take this very good quarterback with some baggage? Yes, I would.
Yeah. So this quarterback who has been a Heisman like hovering on the edge of Heisman contention for like 3 years now. Would you want him on your team? He's mean. Yeah. You still want him?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
Of course.
So some other portal needs that can pop up. We'll talk now, I guess, about wide receiver, which we kind of talked about on the end of, or at some point during last week's podcast, because Javon Baker could come back, but is tweeting cryptic things about your two-year free trial is over.
He also, someone else replied, Javon, come back next year. And he replied to them, ha, good joke. So,
yeah. So I think he's probably gone.
Twitter MVP Javon Baker moving on to the NFL, most likely.
Kobe Hudson, I don't know. Can he come back or no?
He can. They both can come back. I just don't. Okay. I'd be, at this point, I don't know. I'd be surprised if Ivan came back.
Kobe seems to find it funny that he was an honorable mention in the Big 12.
Oh, did you tweet about that?
I think he quote tweeted. UCF said oh, our honorable mentions, whatever, and he replied, and he was like, I don't remember exactly what he said. You don't have to look it up now. But yeah, he did have a response in true Kobe Hudson fashion.
Well, he finished fourth in receiving yards in the Big 12, and the Big 12 only selects like 6 quarterbacks for their ballot. So why would he be on there?
So he's tweeted multiple times actually. Wait,
good.
Maybe he deleted the one replying to UCF, but he quote tweeted Matt Michelle just with the laughing emojis. And it was Matt Michelle saying Big 12 honorable mentions, and he listed all the UCF ones.
I'm going to reply and say, Kobe, I don't understand the emojis. I don't think you missing the team is funny at all. And see what he says.
Yeah, and that'll go over well.
He's getting some good replies.
Your top 2 wide receivers could leave. I would say probably are likely to leave. At least one of them I would say certain to leave, at least. And then both of them probly gone.
There's also nothing behind them. You have Xavier Townsend, assuming he's still here, and then you have what? Trent Whittemore? Yeah. What else? It's kind of it, right? I mean,
yeah.
Gamage is gone after his illustrious UCF career. Tyree Patterson is a true freshman. We haven't seen
him. Did Corey Gamage ever dress?
I don't even think he ever dressed. I don't know. I wasn't looking for him on the sideline, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
man,
what a way!
So yeah, you don't have any wide receivers.
You need them.
So
UCF's also offering a bunch right now, and they're all like D2 and FCS guys. I don't know if that. I joked to you that I said UCF got in Gamage and Magwood and was like, never again are we taking FBS wide receiver transfers. We're just going to find really productive guys from the lower level.
Magwood was a senior too, wasn't he? So
Magwood's gone. Magwood's gone. Well, Magwood opted out anyway. They weren't going to have him. I mean,
I keep forgetting that happened.
I assume that he's going to try to go somewhere else now.
That big news that happened from the player that never played.
It's like the only news Gus has ever announced about the roster. Like he's so cagey about everything, and randomly like just volunteered. Like Chauncey Magwood opted out. So weird. I don't understand.
Gus like you can't ever say that I don't give information because listen, I told you when Magwood left.
It was like he finally got some roster information that affects nothing and was like, I can do it. I can drop this, and then they'll never be able to, like you said, they'll never be able to say it. I don't tell them about players. And then someone's like, Coach, what's the status of Ricky Barber? And he's like, I don't know. No idea. You'd have to ask Ricky, who we don't allow to talk like that. Yeah. So yeah, he got some info out there.
I don't know. It's Gus's favorite thing is we'll update you later in the week, and he doesn't talk.
They don't talk later in the. It drives me. Okay, so quick media. This podcast is gonna be so long. Quick media tangent. When I was first covering UCF, was under the Frost era, or initially 2016 was the first year I covered the team. And back then, access was very different for the media. Which, by the way, whenever people say things on social media like, "Well, why do we care that?" What access the media gets. The media exists to be a conduit to the fans. We exist to ask questions that you might pose. We exist to tell stories of athletes on the team and their interesting, inspiring tales so you can learn more about them and feel closer to them. So don't give the whole, the media. It's like, this is for you guys. When Frost was the coach, we got Frost on Mondays and Thursdays. We'd get an initial Frost presser, then a presser later in the week. We could have any players we want to talk to. You'd ask within reason. You ask the SID in advance, can I talk to this player after practice on Tuesday?
Yeah.
That's it. Under Frost on Monday, or under Gus, Gus talks on Monday. 2 to 3 players talk on Monday. That's access for the week. That's it. And it's in press conference setting. No one-on-ones of any kind allowed. And my favorite thing about this is whatever, different schools have different policies. Gus has taken the more of the SEC approach, which is be afraid that the media room is filled with like spies from the Pentagon. My issue is that Gus does what you do. What you just said is someone will ask a question, he'll go, we'll get you an update on that later in the week. You don't talk later in the week. This is the only time you talk. It just drives me crazy. It was like that under My favorite one was still Josh Heupel, who for 4 straight weeks was asked if Gabe Davis and Adrian Killens would play in the Gasparilla Bowl in 2019, and just kept saying, "We'll get you an update on that later in the week." And then asked it all the way up. It's like 3 days till the game. "We'll get you an update on that later in the week." Just never said anything. I don't understand the paranoia. Did that win the Marshall game? That Marshall had to prepare for Gabe Davis in 2019 instead of some backup? Whatever. Okay, mini rant over.
Yeah, so they need wide receivers, and yeah, they've offered some from these smaller schools, and they're going to need to bring it. That's I'm scared. I'm honestly scared because they're going to need to bring in how many? Like they brought in what they didn't really need to bring in that many last year. They brought in 3. They tried to bring in 4, I think. Yeah, and none of them were hits. So
as far as wide receivers you even heard of, as far as one's coming back next year, it's really basically Townsend, Whittemore, Patterson, and Tyler Griffin.
Yeah.
Well, Trent, Tyree, and Tyler.
That's confusing.
But yeah, bottom line is they seriously probably need to bring in about 3 transfer wide receivers. Now, I will say there are some coming in this class who are going to be freshmen. Like Rick Darius Farmer is a 4-star who's hopefully someone who can come in and play right away. So maybe that's just what we've kind of gone back to. That's what we said. Like, that's why next year is probably not going to be much better than this year. It's just going to feel more progressive because they're actually building towards something. It's probably, as of what we know now, unless they do very well in the portal, it's going to be a lot of just throwing freshmen and sophomores out there and letting them get their feet under them. And they're going to look good at times. They're going to look bad at times. And it's going to be an up and down season, with the hope being that it all comes together in 2025 because of that playing time. So, and how good they're recruiting. So,
yeah. Next one was the offensive line, which is always a need. But I mean, Tylen Grable and Lokahi Pole are gone out of eligibility.
Yep.
I don't know. There could be other holes there, but it's just like, it's always going to be a need. I know they have some really good offensive linemen coming in the class.
Yep. But Claire Flynn stands out as someone who you might be able to start pretty quickly.
Right. So there's some of that, and I'm curious to know like how they try to fill that. I think they will need an offensive tackle because Grable's gone. I don't know if they really have anyone.
I mean, like, Marshall plays some tackle.
Yeah.
I mean, you have come back. You have Drake Metcalf, who's now a guard. You have Caden Kittler, who's a center. You have Marshall, who can kind of go wherever you need him to go. So they can adjust. They can find the best players available and then build from there.
Yeah, but I think they might be in a better spot than they have been in the last couple of years, right? Because I feel like the last couple of years they've had to build their entire offensive line almost through. I mean, outside of Lokahi, and they've had to pretty much build their entire offensive line from the portal. So,
I mean, they could realistically 4 of the 5 guys could be 3 returners and a true freshman, and then you just need 1 transfer. Which I will say, I saw a scary stat from the Athletic this morning that there's only a coach said that they only expect there to be about 30 Power 5 quality offensive linemen in the portal total. And there's 69 Power 5 teams. So obviously UCF's not going to be just snagging a new O-line from the portal. Like, you'll be lucky to get one of those guys, and you might not be able to. So
that's the thing. I think O-linemen don't transfer as much as...
It's like, actually, I don't know if it's the lowest position, but it's one of the lowest positions as far as transfers, offensive line. They very, very rarely transfer, which I guess makes sense because they as a unit tend to be a lot closer than some other units are. And consistency is such an important part of being a good offensive lineman. So that kind of makes sense. Yeah.
And I think even if you're an offensive lineman who's not really playing, I think there's less of I need to go somewhere so I can start, and more of like they're just personality wise. I feel like a lot of them are just like, I love being with these guys, and like I mean, look at how many years Paul Rubelt's been at UCF and has never really been able to get out there. And Paul Rubelt he'll be back next year. He's another one. Maybe Paul Rubelt's time is finally shining. Maybe it is.
He's back next year. So
we'll see. And so I don't think there's anything else on offense. I guess we could talk now, I guess, since we're still on the offense, about the possibility of running back becoming a need. If RJ goes to the NFL or he transfers or whatever, obviously you're going to need, because you have some guys coming back.
No one.
Do you have a number one?
I'm sorry. Johnny Richardson is not a starting running back to me. I don't think he's ever going to be at the Power 5 level. He's good and he's useful, but I don't think he's a guy that you're going to give 25 carries to. And I just don't see that.
100%. No, he's got a role. He's got a good role. And I don't know. I'm curious. Would he transfer? Would he enter the portal? I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, Johnny Richardson's the guy where I guess it's about what matters to you. Because truth is, Johnny could go to I don't know, the Mountain West and cook. He absolutely could. And I think it just becomes, what's important to you at that point? Would you rather be the second option for a Power 5 team, or would you rather be the guy at a smaller school? I don't know. Especially when you're at the point where if you're Johnny, you probably realize at this point the NFL is probably not in the cards either way. It's so hard for running backs, period, to make it.
Yeah. But so other than you have Johnny, you have DeMarcus Bowman, who we saw Not at all.
For
really.
all the hype, he just never really played, so I don't feel good.
Does
about
MAR?
That
I
think MAR
struggle with the eligibility thing at this point because it's like I think we're coming up on the last year of right. We're coming up on the last year of the extra COVID year, but it's thrown so much confusion into all of it that I've struggled to know what anyone's class is for about 4 years.
I mean, Dylan Gabriel started the entire 2019 season, and he's apparently going to be back next year. Like, it's just crazy how long.
That surprised me because I saw people talking like, "Oh, Gabriel could return," even before all the portal like speculation happened. I was like, I thought he had to go. Like, I thought isn't his time.
2019 true freshman year. 2020 COVID year free eligibility. 2021 redshirt medical year. Yeah. 2022 sophomore somehow. 2023 junior. 2024 senior.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And who was? Yeah. I don't remember who it was.
MAR is a redshirt senior, by the way, so he's gone.
Okay, gone. All right. So yeah, I mean, you might even need a running back anyway, even if RJ comes back.
They have a really cool photo on his profile of him in the Kent State combo, the gold helmets with the yellow jerseys. God, that was such a good uniform.
But no, that's the thing to keep an eye on is if once RJ's decision comes down either way, if he's leaving to go to the NFL or he's transferring or whatever, that's when UCF's going to have to scoop up.
Can I make an argument against getting a transfer portal running back?
Yes.
Stacey Gage,
all the running backs they have. Yeah,
they'll be fine.
So I don't know.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, that's true.
They're bringing in two very highly rated running back recruits, and running backs. That's a position with a lot less of a climb to be able to play well in college than some others. So they're not going to be amazing right away, but you'll have options. Someone will shine.
Yeah, still have Jordan McDonald too.
For now.
Yeah. At least for now. It's the thing. We can do this whole episode and be like,
for now. We can do this exact podcast again next week, and we'll be like, now that we know about the 14 UCF players in the portal, let's just redo all of that. But in this moment in time, this is where we're at. So.
Well, I jokingly said to you, you're like UCF. You're like, I'm once again asking why UCF hasn't had anyone into the portal. I was like, their culture is just undefeated. It's just a great culture at UCF. Like
all the word on the street is how good UCF's culture has been and how not a problem that's been. So
no one wants to leave. So defensive side of the ball. Defensive end is obviously a big one because you have Celiscar and Tremon Morris-Brash gone. They were your bookends. And I know you have Malachi Lawrence who will start next year. And then you have Isaiah Nixon who will hopefully be able to play some.
Haven't seen much of, but he was highly rated.
Yeah. Who else? I mean, I don't even
kind of it.
So like
Caven Call. Maybe?
Yeah, Caven Call. Yeah.
We just don't. It's just tough whenever you get the true freshmen in that were highly rated. When you don't see them freshman year, it doesn't mean they're bad by any means. It's just we don't know. It's kind of a question mark.
And a lot of it is like regardless, even if they are going to take big steps, like they're going to need more bodies in there. Like I think we saw, and it didn't even end up we saw Sean Peterson a bit this year, but I was like, it didn't even really end up coming from the portal. It was more the emergence of Malachi Lawrence, but we saw how valuable it was to have more than just Tremon and Josh Celiscar.
Made a huge difference.
It was a big deal, and
they also don't really have any freshmen. Well, they just don't. They don't have any really freshmen coming in who can fill that. So that's probably somewhere they're gonna have to shop a little bit.
Yeah, which I don't know. That's not the easiest position. I feel like to attract.
It's one of those things where you just hope what you have elsewhere can help make up for it a little bit. I mean, the D line's still going to be good next year. I mean, you're still going to have, you'll have Ricky Barber, I think, still has eligibility. You have John Walker, you have Lee Hunter. So it's
I can't even keep up. I can't keep up with it. I thought Ricky was gone. So
I don't think he is. So that's the thing. It's like, it's, I know that like DE is a concern, but it's just hard to imagine a D line unit that includes Ricky and John Walker and Lee Hunter not being at least decent, So hopefully they'll be able to fill those roles and there'll be enough guys there to put something together that's pretty nice.
If any of those guys hop in the portal, that's a need.
If John Walker hops in the portal, which is I'm not starting to remember, I don't think he is. That's just as an example.
Anybody could. We've learned that
the fan base would just go insane. It would be terrible. Yeah. So
and then I don't even want to talk about how the kingdom debate would be revived by that.
Well, that's why I've said, like, I seriously think in the social media stuff, which is whatever. It's like UCF Twitter I love it and I'm a huge part of it, but it is such a small part of the actual entire fan base. So it's not like it actually is influencing opinions of the kingdom, but RJ Harvey's situation is a big prove it moment for the kingdom. It's a big prove. This guy is the most popular UCF player since at least Dylan Gabriel, possibly Mackenzie Milton. The fans chant his name during games multiple times now. If he decides he's not going to the NFL, you need to keep him. If he is playing for another college football team this time next year, that is a huge indictment on the kingdom. Especially considering, like, why would he leave other than for NIL? Money. Like, that's the only he's the hometown hero. Kid. No, there's no reason other than UCF couldn't pay him that he would be playing for another school next year.
like 3 weeks ago, I was like, there's no shot he returns next year. Now I'm kind of like, if he doesn't return next year and he's not in the NFL, like I'm gonna be mad. Like I'm gonna be.
I know. Well, it also just be kind of heartbreaking because he's so popular right now, and he's really been the kind of heart and soul from the fan base's perspective of this team. I know that's not maybe necessarily. I think JRP definitely was the leader of that locker room this season, but fans love him, and he's such a fun player. And I think that you generate, regardless of what next year is, you generate so much more hype for that season if you're bringing your star back versus if you're watching him suit up for like Miami or something. So it's a big moment for the Kingdom.
And it also feels like I just said earlier, like he really emerged over the second half of last year as he recovered from his injury, and then this year he went on that insane run. And it's like, oh, we hardly knew you. Like just when you started to peak at UCF, like, all right, he's gone because we couldn't pay him. So I don't know. You hope that doesn't become a thing. How do we get back on running back again? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Oh, because I said the NIL thing about John Walker.
Okay. Yep.
But yeah. And the probably most obvious outside of quarterback need that they're going to have is at linebacker. It's going to be a need every year forever.
This podcast was started in January of 2021. It is now November of 2023. We're coming up on 3 years of doing this podcast. And for as long as this podcast has existed, we've been talking about how UCF needs linebackers. It is insane which part of it is because in the middle, UCF was like, we found our answer. It's two guys who've already washed out of multiple other programs. We're bringing them in. So that was part of the problem. But they once again need linebackers for next year. They have nothing there, like nothing. Like cupboards are bare, nothing. And
then there was a point last year where we're like, all right, they got Greer. Like Antonio Greer's fine. Like that's going to be he's going to come in. He's going to start. And then no.
Remember when they had Chris Mole?
Barely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man, I forgot about that.
They've come close a few times to having linebackers, but
they've almost done it.
The only even sort of intriguing options on the roster right now are Andrew Harris or Troy Ford, who are two freshmen who we just don't really know anything about. Yeah. No idea if they're good. Probably a lot to ask them to go from not playing at all to starting in the Power 5. So yeah, transfers are needed. That's an absolute must happen. Get a transfer.
Nightmare scenario is that it's this time next year, and we're talking again about the season. You know, we think it's going to be like maybe a similar or a little bit worse season anyway, but just thinking like, you know, it was a really big problem again this year, not having any linebackers.
Hey, like, how crazy is it that UCF, for how the season went, had a linebacker named to the All Big 12 team?
He was on the second team, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Which
he was fine. Don't get me wrong. Like Jason Johnson had a pretty solid year. It just for that position group as a whole being such a problem for UCF, it was just hilarious to see RJ Harvey not named to All Big 12 team, UCF linebacker named to All Big 12 team.
Yeah. And then so that's kind of like where we've had it capped here for this podcast is like, I don't think DB is going to be one that's like where they really need. They have a lot of really young, talented guys that have seen the field a lot. Unless there's an unexpected entry into the portal, then I think they're probably pretty set there.
They've also got freshmen coming in too, some of whom are highly rated enough. You kind of think they might be able to do basically what Braden Marshall did this year. So
yeah. So I feel pretty decent about the secondary.
It's so
a lot
weird.
of it's just linebacker.
Let me say one final note, and then this is a long podcast, and we'll get in the news and we'll get out of here. But when we say things like we're not sure how good next year will be or if it will be worse, we just simply don't know right now. We're working with the cards we have. We just don't know, because it's not just about UCF too. That's the part people forget is we have to go find out who the 12 teams they're playing, what they're going to be looking like, and who they're going to have, and how the schedule will shake out week to week, where a bye week is, things like that. So it's just impossible to know right now. We'll get into it in the offseason, and even then we'll think we know everything in April, and then we'll get to the season and we'll be completely wrong. So that's the fun thing about college football is you just actually never know what's going to happen.
Though we should take a victory lap for being the people who were like, they'll probably go 6-6 or 7-5 this year, and that'll be fine. And they did.
Yeah, but that also didn't take rocket science to figure out.
No, it didn't.
It wasn't. That was one of the easier calls we've had to make. Was UCF might be worse when they get to the Power 5.
Hey, you have to take the victories where you can, Christian. You have to be able to be like, this was an easy take to have. Let's have the easy take. Because
when you're a podcast who names wide receiver Jordan Johnson as your breakout player for the season, you got to take the wins where you get.
Yeah, no, it's bad. But cool. Let's jump into the football news real quick, which is really it's hilarious when you look at the outline. I don't know if you've looked at it yet, but there's, I think, 3 pieces or 3 topics here, and it's like giant block of text.
Yep, it's
because
a lot.
The first thing we have is that Devon Wilson made his NFL debut for the Cardinals on Sunday, which I think was pretty cool, and congratulations to him. And then it gets into the giant 2 things where there's the bowl projections roundup, where there's a lot going on here. I don't even really know. I don't know. I'm sure there's stuff that we can't talk about that's like more of an idea of where things are headed. So a lot of these are like all over the board. I sent you that tweet earlier. It was pretty funny. Somebody posted like a all over the place like hurricane map where it was UCF really bowl projections. So the Athletic has UCF and Georgia Tech in the Gasparilla Bowl. Thoughts? I'm going to go get your thoughts on any of these matchups.
I don't know. Sure.
I mean, I don't like the matchups, whatever, but I've said on this podcast, selfishly, if they end up in the Gasparilla Bowl, I will be having a party. Brett McMurphy initially this week had UCF and JMU, James Madison, in the Gasparilla Bowl, but then today he released new bowl projections and now has UCF and Duke in the Gasparilla Bowl. Does anyone want a round 2 with Duke?
Now that Riley Leonard's in the portal, sure.
Maybe.
They have no coach and no quarterback. Bring on Duke. Let's do it. That'll be so fun.
ESPN has some interesting ones. It's either UCF and Cal in the Independence Bowl in Shreveport, or UCF and Syracuse in the First Responder Bowl, which I think that's in Dallas, right?
Yeah,
those are
Dallas.
Those are both weird matchups to even picture.
I don't get the
Cal,
chunk of the fan base that which we don't know what's going to happen at this point, but I don't get the chunk of the fan base that would actually rather play a random group of 5 team than USF. Like that's just such a defeatist mentality to me, but whatever.
I don't even get the fan base that's saying like, "Oh no, I don't want to be in the Gasparilla Bowl." Like, why not? You can go to that game. Like,
I can go to
Dallas? Like, are you going to go to I don't know.
Fans want weird stuff with the
Bowls. So then 247 has still's the one that has UCF and USF in the Gasparilla Bowl, and then the other one that we don't really like is Jerry Palm of CBS Sports having UCF and Arkansas State in the Cure Bowl. Just don't want that.
Yeah, me neither. But
I don't know. Out of all of these, I'm like UCF, USF, or just any scenario where they're in the Gasparilla Bowl is what I'm rooting for at this point. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's fine. Like I could make my peace with the Cure Bowl too. It's just. Oh, also there have been a couple that are throwing in the Duke's Mayo Bowl now. Like we've seen like a couple more of those. That one I could also make my peace with because that's drivable at least. But like, don't go to Dallas or something. Don't do that to me.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll know on Sunday, which I'm thankful for because then we could stop doing all the projections. Although I say that, but I also just love reading bowl projections just for the wackiness of like these hypothetical matchups. So it's fun, but it's also at this point of the bowl projection season, I'm like, let's just get the real matchups and let's see what we have to look forward to throughout December. And then the last piece of news is the all Big 12 selections, which we've referenced a couple times. So Javon Baker and Tremont Morris-Brash were both on the first team, and Jason Johnson was on the second team. Did any of those surprise you? I wasn't surprised by the offensive ones. I was a little surprised Jason Johnson landed just because I thought he was fine. He was solid, but I didn't think he had like an all Big 12. I guess he did top 100 tackles, but I don't know if that tackles are always like, I don't know. I don't know what the rest of his stats look like. I don't know what the other linebackers in the conference look like.
Yeah, Jason Johnson was the only surprise to me. I mean, it was cool to see that. I was like UCF getting two first teamers is kind of cool in year one. And I mean, Javon Baker ended up leading the Big 12 in receiving yards, so that one wasn't a big surprise. But yeah, Jason Johnson was the only one where I was like, oh.
Yeah, and then we talked about Harvey being the snub, and I think even Kobe Hudson, I'd say, has a case of being a snub too. And then the honorable mentions, we have R.J. Harvey, Colton Boomer, Tylen Grable, Damari Henderson, Kobe Hudson, Lee Hunter, Malachi Lawrence, which I think that one's especially well-deserved, Lokahi Paule, John Rice Plumlee, Corey Thornton, Xavier Townsend as a kick returner and punt returner. And then we have honorable mentions for these other awards. So like Tremont Morris-Brash got an honorable mention for Defensive Lineman of the Year. Randy Pittman Jr. got a Offensive Freshman of the Year honorable mention. And John Walker got a Defensive Freshman of the Year honorable mention. I was a little surprised no, he was better. If they're just throwing out honorable mentions, though, I was a little surprised that Braden Marshall didn't get one for Defensive Freshman of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, he had some bad moments here and there, but I don't know. It's a good sign that I'm having a little trouble picking who was the most impressive true freshman this year because John Walker, Braden Marshall, and Randy Pittman all have a pretty solid case for it. So that's cool.
I think it was probably John Walker. But
see, I was going to say it was probably Randy Pittman. This is why I like we can. I mean, John Walker definitely I think felt the most like he's just in the rotation. Like this is a guy they're relying on right now, which isn't surprising. Yeah. Highest rated recruit in program history. But Randy Pittman did a lot. He was getting used a lot towards the end of the season. They had getting some 2 tight end sets out there in this Houston game. It's been fun.
Which is the thing they needed to do to be like, hey, look, Kylan, look, because he was there, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
So like, look at the two tight end sets. See, Holler's leaving because he's out of eligibility. That's gonna be you next year.
That one play where Holler and Pittman lined up literally on like opposite sidelines. I bet Gus was just looking in the crowd like, Kylan, like, see, look.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, game of the week. It's UCF women's basketball, who was off to a 6-0 start. They swept their 3 games where was it? Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. That was there over the Thanksgiving week. And so they're 6-0, and their next game is on Sunday at 3 p.m. against Campbell. who comes in at 5-1. Although, I mean, they've played, I didn't recognize some of the teams they've played. The one team that I recognize, forgetting who it was, they lost by like 30. They did beat Western Michigan the other day. But
we're no longer talking about the men's basketball team on this podcast. It's just not happening anymore.
No, so. I gave women's basketball a game of the week again because they deserved it 2 weeks in a row.
They didn't lose to Stetson. So
and then the thing is, men's basketball lost to Stetson, and was I going to turn around and say, oh well, they need to rebound with a big game against Lipscomb? Like, I'm not doing
Probably
that.
Not.
I'm
Probably
just going to
use
this to highlight the fact that women's basketball is 6-0. So shout out to Coach Messer. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week goes to, this is one of the rare tweet of the weeks where I actually really like this tweet. So we're highlighting a tweet that I enjoyed. And this goes to Sam Del Valle, not really sure how to say it. His handle is at Oh Hey Fritz. While the Kingdom stuff was happening, he, as a UCF historian apparently, categorized and cataloged all of the UCF feuds that have taken place on Twitter since the start of the season. So I just wanted to read his tweet out to you because it really covered everything. So his tweet was the UCF Twitter Civil War 2023 timeline. Week 1, rained out tailgates. Week 2, Boise State all blue uniforms, which I totally forgot about. That was so long ago, but UCF Twitter decided it was an unfair advantage that that Boise got to wear blue uniforms. Week 3, why aren't we getting AP votes? That was another one I kind of forgot about. UCF fans were very angry that after starting,
I didn't know that happened.
That was the whole thing. They beat Boise, and it was like, we don't even get a vote. So that was great. Week 4 was the moral victory part 1 discussion. Week 5 was the student section conundrum, which just kind of continued throughout the rest of the year. Week 6 was Frankie Valli, when everyone revolted and demanded the DJ be fired. Did not play Frankie Valli the last 2 home games, which is
they won both the last 2 home games.
Fans kind of won that one. Week 7 was the Canaveral blue uniforms, which everyone hated because the team was doing badly. But then by the time the game rolled around, the team was doing well, so everyone loved the uniforms. And now I posted a tweet earlier the week, and I said favorite combo from the season. Everyone was like, has to be the Canaveral blue, best space uniforms ever. They won a game in them. Week 8 was moral victory part 2. Week 9 was fire somebody. I think that somebody for a lot of people was Addison Williams, which I thought was dumb at the time and still do. Week 10 was storm the field or don't. I participated in that one. And UCF did a good job of, instead of letting them storm the field, just had a politely walk onto the field because we're letting it happen moment. Week 11 was student section part 2. And then week 12 was Kingdom NIL. So we did it, everybody. We got through a whole season having an actual straight up civil war on Twitter every single week.
Well, it's funny so that was last week while the Kingdom stuff was going on before the Houston game. Because then the student section thing continued into Saturday into Saturday because
students didn't fly back for a game against a bad Houston team. So shame on them.
Yeah, so it's fun. I don't know, UCF Twitter. I'm kind of looking forward to. I guess it never really stops, but I think it kind of just gets a little bit less. People just kind of start to talk about. I was gonna say people start talking about dumb things, but all of this has been dumb. But it's the off season, so it's just a little bit less. Like I can tune it out more easily, I think.
Twitter really does suck. But anyway, go follow the Pegasus Podcast Twitter. That was just started today. We've gotten 2 more followers since we started recording.
Yeah, I was just checking on that actually because I got another notification. I really need to.
I wonder how long it's going to be before you and I reply to the same tweet or something, because that already almost happened today. I was replying to someone and I saw you already had liked the tweet, and I was like,
"Oh, really?
Let me get out of here." Yeah.
Maybe we need to communicate about that, but
I think we should. I think let's just both go crazy, and what happens. If someone gets 2 different replies from the same account, so be it.
I was having the thing earlier because we just started it today as we're recording, and I was texting you asking you should I? Where you can't keep doing that, where it's like can I tweet this? Should I tweet this? So it'll just I'm just gonna start tweeting things. You'll start tweeting.
We both sent slightly different versions of the same tweet to each other at the same time. Like in our text message, we both hit send. I'm just like, okay, it's gonna take some. We'll learn. Should we sign tweets? Should we be like?
I thought about that. I don't really know if I want to do that.
I'm gonna start tweeting just really stupid stuff and signing it BA.
And then I'll do the same thing, and then I'll delete the account. No, I thought about that, and I thought maybe in situations where it makes sense. Why are we talking about this on the podcast? In situations where it makes sense, maybe we sign it if it's a conversation or something.
But like I said, we're 3 tweets in, and each one is so obvious which one of us sent it. So maybe it'll just work.
I think it's more fun that way. I think, especially for people who listen and don't just follow us on Twitter. People who listen will know.
It's kind of like an inside
follow
thing.
Us on Twitter because people know your style of tweeting. I don't know if they know mine or not, but they might.
You tweet exactly how you talk on this podcast. So I feel like if someone listens to this pod, they'll know.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I think you're consistent. I think that's good. You're not two-faced.
That's good.
You just tweet. You're very well. I will say there are exceptions. You always tweet very measured most of the time, and very you have your sort of humor to you. But then it'll be UCF's down 14, and you'll just be like, I hate everything to do with the University of Central Florida. Burn it all down. And that's the only time that you
I believe
your voice a little bit. I know. Yeah. No, I love reading your game tweets. They're fun.
Then I have to go back at the end of the game. And I'm like, all right, that was probably not a good thing to tweet in the moment.
But this is why I'm always surprised, because I'll read your game tweets and you're so mad. And they'll go on the podcast and you're like, Christian, not a bad day for you.
No, that's the thing, is because it happens. It's like in the course of a game, I will be very mad something happened and then they'll fix it. And I don't necessarily tweet that they fixed it or like that something happened to make me not feel the same way anymore. So it's just like, yeah, no, I in the moment was feeling very annoyed and angry, but
we've talked about this a billion times with Twitter. Like I'll tweet when I'm covering a game. I'll be like, oh, that was a bad drop by Javon Baker. And then he'll go on to like catch like 5 balls for like 100-something yards. And then people will be replying and be like, you ready to take that back? And I'm
like that didn't age well.
It was a bad cat. It was a bad drop.
Yeah. No, I've had a fair share of those replies where it was, this didn't age well. I'm like, well, yeah, because I tweeted it when UCF was down by 20 in the first quarter 4 hours ago. And now you're replying to me on Sunday. So yeah. Like, God. Why are you looking at tweets from yesterday at 4 o'clock, like at 1 o'clock in the afternoon?
I do wonder about that sometimes, because I will like, it'll be like 4 or 5 days, like happened today, like a while after UCF games ended, and someone likes a tweet of mine from the game. It's like a mundane tweet. Fault. Like someone literally yesterday liked a tweet where I just said UCF kicks off to Houston to start the game, and I'm like,
that was a bot. That had to be a bot,
it had to be a bot, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah. No, but that's also the app's fault now. They have the whole for you thing. You'll see a tweet from 3 days ago. So yeah. All right. Follow us on Twitter at Pegasus Podcast. And we'll have a lot of fun. I'm sure it'll be fun.
Definitely.
We'll be back next week with who knows what's going to happen in the next week between
good God,
whatever UCF Twitter fights could happen, whatever portal stuff could happen, all the bowl rumors and finalization. That'll all be, something to talk about next week when we're back with episode 181. But until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, everybody.